Hey, I'm checking out what's going on with this BRICS meeting in Rio. This is like the enemies of Trump: Russia, China, Brazil's communist Lula, who kicked out Bolsonaro. South Africa, aren't we all happy about their DEI experiment? And they're all gathering together to undercut the United States. And Trump gets so mad when he hears about this, but it's a real threat. Nations are moving away from the dollar. If God's favor ever lifts off this country, you'll know it when America's no longer the reserve currency and we have trillions of dollars come back to us on top of our $35 trillion debt. Pray that never happens. But there's some good news. Tell us about Mercedes, about what Kevin Freeman's doing with his project, his stuff.
Well, yeah, big updates on the transactional gold. You've seen Kevin on the program. We should probably get him on again soon to talk about this. Because boy, oh boy, we've got Governor DeSantis just passed the law in Florida that there can be tendered state gold, silver, which is a huge step into moving into transactional gold, which means buying and selling items with a credit card. This is a really weird angle. With a credit card that you can you can have, and you can buy and sell all sorts of stuff with your gold and silver. So not only is gold just a store of value, it's also going to become transactional again, which is a huge deal. It hasn't been like that. Oh my gosh, we're coming up on 80
So you could get a credit card that buys with their $3,500 an ounce gold rather than the dollar.
Correct, and they have that today. The thing is, it's taxed as a commodity, so it's about a 33% tax rate. So states doing this. Governor Abbott just signed a bill here in Texas legalizing tendered gold and silver, and it's going to be on a little card that you can get, which means not only does your gold have a store of value, but it's also going to be transactional. It's big things for gold, really big.
Well, all right, we're going to go to Philip Patrick right now in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He's live at the BRICS event. He's our spy in the camp, and we're going to find out what's happening. You don't want to miss this. Go to, by the way, lancewallnau.com/gold. This is all about gold today, right now, for the next 10 minutes. And with this breakthrough that's happening with states sponsoring gold as a currency, folks, gold's going to go through the sky with this one. All right, let's talk to Philip. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, the future of the global economy is being decided. I'm always amazed at how disconnected American news is from reality. I mean, it takes a while for the news cycle that you're looking at to actually reflect the reality of what's going on in the big picture. And give you an example of that. Russia, India, China, our friends, the Arabs in Saudi Arabia, Africa, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, one of the big governments in the world, one of the big trade and economic titans of South America, they're all in a conference to calculate how to get away from America's dumpster fire of debt, that we're passing our big, beautiful bill, and basically the president's solution to the problem of America's debt is no one has the courage to handle it, so I'm just going to turbocharge the economy and get ahead at least of the destruction. That doesn't solve other countries' anxieties about America's financial house. The expert on location as the BRICS countries are meeting is Philip Patrick. Philip, you're a fly on the wall. What is going on? Am I exaggerating the situation? I'm trying to say the average American doesn't realize this is like the Bretton Woods or something that you don't find out about till later, only now we know there's a major conversation among governments about debt and the future of the financial markets. What are you hearing?
Yeah, you're correct. We landed in Rio yesterday. We'll be reporting directly from the conference. Very interesting. This is a big deal in Rio. The airport was plastered with posters for BRICS 2025. Their slogan, sovereignty, stability, and solidarity. The place is interesting. You can see there's a lot of opportunity here, and people are excited about change on the horizon. With regards to the meeting itself, obviously this is the 2025 BRICS annual summit hosted in Rio de Janeiro. What we're expected to see is a formal launch of a fully functioning international non-dollar denominated financial system. These guys have been working on it for over a decade now, and I think this is what we call a soft launch. I think part of the reason why people aren't hearing about it is a soft launch by design, right? They know President Trump is going to clamp down hard, and I think this is sort of a slow release of information. But it's happening, and I don't think there's a huge amount we can do to stop it short term.
All right, so I got some questions that my staff was very interested in hearing answers to. So this isn't just talk. We have proof that something real is happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about a financial system, this is something that they've created, right? A financial system requires things, right? It needs institutions, it needs messaging systems to move between institutions. And up until now, this has been dominated by us. The SWIFT system is a US-made system with complete oversight. The BRICS system is up and running today. They have a new development bank to sort of rival the World Bank. They have an M-Bridge platform, which is actively today making cross-border payments using local currencies. They have the BRICS contingent reserve arrangement, which is a central bank swap agreement. And they have their own rival to the SWIFT system. As I think I've mentioned before, the way that banks communicate is done through physical cables, thousands of miles run undersea, that has been dominated by the United States. That's how we freeze Russia's assets. They have their own cables. So this is not something that is sort of hypothesis. This is happening. Now, I don't think it's going to be a case on July 8th, after the summit is finished, they turn a switch and suddenly everyone moves. What I do think we will continue to see is more non-dollar denominated transactions on a global scale. The more that happens, the weaker the dollar becomes. And then longer term, and I stress those words, the weaker the argument will be for the dollar as the global reserve currency.
You know, my great nightmare is that America could have that dome that protects us from a nuclear attack. We could have all of the advantages that we have as a country with our power, that we are the global mall. We do have purchase power, buying power. But if we don't have the self-discipline to get our financial house in order, which we don't, then as Lincoln said, America is so situated by the providence of God that we have vast oceans between us and any approaching enemy. It must be that if we ever die, it will be by our own hand, by national suicide. And that's the reason why gold has gone up 75% over the last couple of years, 40-some% in the last year. And folks, my wife and I, listen, I talk to my audience because my background is ministry. I talk like a guy who's accountable when he dies for telling the truth. Annabelle and I are looking right now, what do we have that we can put into gold? That's why you got to go to lancewallnau.com/gold. Make sure that you get the link and you'll be able to get the link that'll tell you all about what's happening right now with Rio, what's going on with the dollar, and find out for yourself. And so just explain to folks, it isn't just gold, but I mean, obviously these world banks are saying, all right, you want a monetary system? The dollar's not going to be our baseline. It's going to be gold. And that is a global economic store of value. Am I mistaken on that?
You are absolutely correct, and we're seeing it play out. Listen, the BRICS do not have a currency that can usurp the dollar, right? The dollar is in trouble, but it is the best of a bad bunch. There isn't, from a currency standpoint, a viable alternative, but that's why they're using gold. For the last 3 years, it started in 2022 when Biden weaponized our dollar and froze Russia's assets. Central bank gold buying has stepped up and set records consecutively, right? Gold has become the number 2 global reserve asset. It overtook the euro last year, and I think that's how it's going to continue. The more gold these countries buy, the less dollars they hold. The less dollars they hold, the bigger the problem it is for us in the United States. Factor in, as you mentioned, large spending bills, right? Increasing the national debt. We're starting to look unsecure fiscally, and investors are starting to seek alternatives now.
Well, that's my question to you. If you had to allocate percentages, and it's not an exact science, to what percent of the motivation of BRICS nations is we just don't want to be at the punitive end of U.S. policy, like either we get in line or there's financial consequences? And what extent is it your house is not stable, your dollar is not stable, we don't trust the American economy, period. It's not just about our sovereignty, it's about the fact that we're tied to a problem, and since you won't manage it, we feel a little better about managing these things ourselves. What's the allocation there?
That, by the way, is a fantastic question. It's a tough one to answer. Look, the catalyst, what started all of this was Biden's weaponization, right? And you can see that with central bank gold buying. I saw Nicholas Taleb, the author of Black Swan, he was on Bloomberg the other day saying, listen, the dollar is losing its global reserve currency status. And the interviewer said, well, what evidence do you have for that? And he said, look at central bank gold buying. It started in 2022 and it hasn't let up. So I think the catalyst for sort of diversification was that. However, since then, of course, the dollar has been falling in value. It's been losing purchasing power. This year, it's lost 15% alone. Its worst year since 1973. So now we're making the argument easier. Not only is there a sort of security argument for the BRICS, there is a fiscal argument as well. In the same time period that dollar's lost 20% of its purchasing power, gold is up over 40. So to allocate percentages, given that it was the catalyst, maybe we look at a 60-40, right? The catalyst was weaponization, but now through money printing, through dollar devaluation, and through excessive spending for the next decade, we made the argument easier. So maybe a 60-40, Lance.
60-40 being the
weaponization.
Weaponization, yeah. They want, yeah, China, obviously, and Russia doesn't want to be whipped around by American foreign policy. But also, the yuan, I mean, the gold is the common denominator because I don't think they really, I mean, they won't say it disrespectfully, but does anybody really trust China to be giving accurate economic data? I mean, they operate behind central planning. So it's not going to be the yuan, and that's been a little bit of their problem. You know, who's going to, and what will be the currency that we work with? They got to do a basket, right?
It's going to be a basket. Listen, as you say, the yuan, first of all, nobody trusts China. People don't really invest in Chinese markets. Even the populace, they don't trust financial markets. On top of that, China keep a weak currency because they're very large exporters. So China are not the people. Like you said, I think we move into a more multipolar world. And if you look at the system that BRICS have created, it's a modern version of our existing system, but it allows countries to settle in multiple different currencies. It's just a better version of the Western system. So what I think we see is we move into a more multipolar world. I've said before, the U.S. overperforms in terms of attracting assets. We have 60% of the world's capital. As we're starting to be viewed as less fiscally responsible, I think we'll see diversification. And that's part of the problem with Trump's policies. In a vacuum, they work very, very well, right? We have the power to incentivize trade and balance trade, or sort of settle trade imbalances. The problem is when we're racked with $37 trillion of debt and we're reliant on the world to finance that debt, it becomes much more problematic. You know, it's almost as if Trump's policies were a continuation from 2020, but Biden caused so many problems, it's making his job much, much more difficult.
Well, it is. And combine that with the 2-year election cycle for congressmen. Who wants to go back and be the draconian realist that says, hey, folks, we just can't fund that anymore. You're out. Get the other guy. I mean, our system isn't designed to solve this problem. But what are you looking for? We only got like a minute left. You're down there. Is there anything that you're looking for as a tell on some development that you got your antenna up on? Like, ooh, they dropped that one this week.
For us, it's the messaging. Look, we have no doubt the BRICS are going to continue and they're going to move forward with this. The big question for us is the messaging. Are they going to own it? Is it going to be swept under the carpet? Initial sort of things that we're hearing is this is fairly public. I mean, Brazil's finance minister talked about, the dollar being a danger for countries around the world as the U.S. continues to amass debt. But the messaging is why we're here. We want to hear directly from finance ministers, people in the know, and we want to know how they're dressing it up. So over the next few days, we'll continue to have those interviews, get a lot more information, and of course, we'll be happy to share it with you guys.
Yeah, let me just go on the record as saying I'm not a big fan of Lula down there in Brazil. Their messaging's anti-U.S. because they're dang socialist, communist, corrupt. And that's the reason Bolsonaro, if he runs back again, they could try to assassinate him. They're as wicked as our leftist extremists who tried to kill Trump. Let me go on record and say these nations are messaging because they want to break free I get the dollar, I get this stuff, but there's also a competing world order. And these cats, Lula, Putin, Chairman Mao in China over there with President Xi, trust me, you're better off with the Trumpian sovereign nation state worldview with America strong and supporting its. Look how Trump's put wars to bed around the world. The other side of that, folks, if we don't get our fiscal house in order, then you're going to rue the day you didn't listen to me say. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold and get your information, get your retirement account set up there. And I don't want to be like that guy. Tell my wife, Philip, there's a Bible story about a wedding, and there was 10 virgins that went. Only 5 of them had oil sufficient for the long journey, and they had to go back and buy oil in order to get oil in their lamps for the journey. Well, we're in a period of hope and optimism right now, but it's a long journey in the coming decade of where America comes out, and you need oil in your lamp. And what's weird is the virgins that needed the oil, Philip, they went, and the Bible says, go to them that sell oil and buy for yourself. And it always amazes me that there are people out there selling the solution who themselves aren't even making the right trip. And I don't want to be one of those guys that is telling you about what to do, and then I turn around and say to my wife, how come we didn't do it ourselves? And that's where I'm at right now. I'm looking again and saying, Philip, I believe gold is a store of value that is going to have biblical permanence. It's right out of the book of Haggai, the silver and the gold is mine. When I shake the nations, God says, silver and gold is mine. I'm not quite sure why he put it in there, but I know it's been there for 500 years BC. It was already there as when shaking happens, God controls the currencies, and the silver and the gold is what he talks about. Do you ever hear that verse?
I didn't, but I'm blown away, and it's I didn't want to talk after that, Lance. It's absolutely spot on. Listen, I question myself whether it's a relic, and at the turn of the century, and today I think it's very clear it is not.
Yep, you got it, brother. Well, thank you for giving us priority access to you at a great event like that. It means a lot to our audience and to us. We all love to hear what you have to say. We trust you. LanceWallnau.com/gold, and you can get the latest and understand what Philip is saying and get our report. Talk to one of the team members with Philip and realize why this is important. God bless you, my brother. Be safe.
Thank you. God bless.
Great guy. All right, so listen, go to them that sell and buy for yourselves. It amazes me that sometimes people can have answers to problems and they themselves aren't partaking. I'm not going to be one of them. I'm reevaluating our shekels and rubles here that we have in our retirement account and saying, honey, let's go do an audit right now and make sure that we've got a sufficient strength in gold. And we don't talk enough about silver. We'll do that in the future too. Anyway, you got my message for today. LanceWallnau.com/gold. And you got the Rio update on BRICS. We're going to keep an eye on those guys. I think Trump will crack the whip on it if they get out of line, but we won't have Trump forever. So I'll talk to you later. God bless. We're entering a period of time that has increased hostility against people of faith. It's a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral, physical, psychological, and even a financial basis. I'm here to remind you that God is the one who has blessed you thus far, and he will take care of you in the future. You have a divine responsibility, however, to see trouble and prepare yourself. For example, with record inflation eating away at the value of the U.S. dollar, the savings in your retirement account is in danger of slipping away. I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now that includes no penalties, there's no taxes when you transfer current retirement funds into Birch Gold. To see how it works, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/birch and get your free info kit, and you'll be glad that you did.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world